Hello and welcome. This is going to be a test / quick look for something that I bought 2 years ago or so. I got it cheap, that's why I bought it. Otherwise I would have never touched it in a million years. It's the Captain Sim pseudo 777, which is based on the 747 of Asobo. The reason why I'm digging it out again is after all these sim updates and AAUIs, avionics updates and so on, I was wondering if this can be used at all. Because Captain Sim had issued an update, which by the way, I just recently managed finally to get installed because their DLLs, the code that they have in those aircraft regularly trigger in many antivirus software triggers alarm because it looks like a harmful code. Now obviously it isn't, but how is an antivirus software supposed to know? Because certain patterns are so similar that they detect a particular problem. Now, not all antivirus software, by the way, goes off, but Kaspersky did. And until recently I had Kaspersky, and Kaspersky didn't give me a chance. No matter what I tried, I was not able to convince Kaspersky to allow me to use this version, the version 1.3.0, by the way, which is the latest fix of Captain Sim. It did not allow me to use it, and I wasn't able to activate or protect the DLL from being discarded right away. It actually also discarded the installation. I just simply couldn't install it. So for me, the 777 was completely out. I've recently now done away with Kaspersky for many reasons, not only for this, and I got myself Bitdefender. Bitdefender did complain too, but at least I was able to put it on the exception list successfully, and that's how I actually got to version 1.3.0. which is already a couple of months old. I think it's from the beginning of the year. So it is definitely from, as far as I understand, it's from before the AAUI 2 update, definitely, the one that fixes the FMCs in Boeing aircraft and so on. Yeah, so I thought, finally, I installed it, 1.3.0. Let's give it a go. Let's start up this aircraft and see how bad it is and how much it benefits from the changes that Asobo and Microsoft did put in the last avionics update, which has improved the Boeing 747, on which this fake 777 is based on. And yeah, so I started it, and it was the same old crap from before. I do understand now why this is, because Asobo, and that's actually a good thing that they do this, they updated the avionics, yes, but they also updated the aircraft that have these avionics FMCs. So that means the 747 and the 787, they updated them as well, and they use a completely new API, as we call that, an application programming interface, but they leave the old one in there for compatibility with all their add-ons, such as this thing here. So I ended up with the same old, unusable, completely crap. So it looks good, but it didn't work at all. It had all the old issues that I thought would have been overcome by now with the new avionics update. And the reason is very simple. Captain Sim hasn't bothered to reprogram their 777s and also the 767 with the new AUI, at least not yet. And therefore, without any mod, this thing is completely useless, and I can, what was that? Someone turned off the light. Yeah, save electricity. Nowadays it's expensive, I suppose. So I cannot recommend anyone to actually still spend money on this. This is just my personal opinion, but don't spend money on this. If you need a 777, then you probably better wait for PMDG, although that could be a long wait, but well, we don't know. It could go quicker than we think. I bought it for about $10. 2 years ago it was a sale, it was so cheap, and I didn't have to buy the other. Like, usually Captain Sim has a base pack, and then you get another extension pack. Usually it's not the cargo first. So in some of the cases I had to wait quite a long time until they finally published a cargo expansion pack, and then you have to pay again. So you end up having to buy one aircraft you didn't really want if you're someone that's into cargo flying or freighter flying. So you have to buy an aircraft that you don't really want it, and then you have to wait for the expansion pack and pay again in order to get the aircraft that you originally wanted. In this case, these 777s, they are completely separate. That means your 200, 300, or ER, or whatever, the variants that they offer, these are all independent add-ons. You do not have to have one to get the other. And that was the reason, $10, this aircraft, I thought, what could go wrong? Well, we know what can go wrong and what kind of crap it is. But by the time that I bought it, I knew that there is a mod. So that was the initial version of the salty 777 mod. Someone took the salty mod from the 747, the original one, and kind of created a modification for the 777 and also later the 767, which looks like a 777. And 400, is it 400 ER or something like that? And with that, it kind of got usable. And in the end, this packet was actually overhauled, and actually a very complete package was created, and until recently was also kept up to date. But I guess since the recent AUI and other sim updates, and also because, as far as I understand, the developer who did this mod doesn't really have time to update it, so we ended up with a sort of outdated version of this mod. But I thought, well, I give it a go. I gave it a go, and unfortunately, all the windows were covered by sunshades, so you had difficulties looking out of your aircraft, which is sort of detrimental to the flying experience. And there have been some other issues, like the radios didn't show any numbers, so you were kind of blindly setting your frequency. I even made myself a lorry axis and O kind of panel with the frequencies. That's how far I go. When I'm set up my mind to get something to work, then I usually try hard. And only when I fail with all my attempts, then I finally give up. As it turned out, I was reading comments, which I usually don't do because either it works or it doesn't. But in this case, because I was a bit frustrated, I started reading the comments, and just one comment page further on Flight Sim Tool, where you can download the mod, I saw something. Someone had taken the unfortunately slightly outdated mod, has adapted it to the Captain Sim 1.3.0 that we are having now, which is the latest version of Captain Sim as of mid-2023, and has fixed practically all the really stupid things that stopped us from using the mod, and therefore stopped us using this aircraft. Well, seriously. Yeah. I download this from a Google zip drive, and I'm going to put the links in the description. And I have to say, that fixed a lot. And it made this aircraft look pretty okay. And I had already 2 test flights. The very first test flight, there were a couple of things that went not so well. But I learned from them. And then I had a second, I had actually a live stream. And in the live stream, everything went okay until we were landed and at the parking position. Then something really strange happened. And I'm not going to do what I did at that time because I'm not sure if it has to do with each other. But in Munich, where we landed, the aircraft actually made some happy jumps, ended up on a completely different gate in the construction area in Munich because I changed to the drone view. Very odd. Not sure how this comes. Could be a problem with the scenery, could be a problem with the aircraft. I can't tell you, but the flight itself went actually quite okay. And we're going to try and replicate this today and see where we get with it. So that was the story. By the way, let's close the door. It's door number 2. Yeah. Captain Sim, don't ask me why. They have not coded the door command that opens this here on their main door and on the cargo door. So no matter which of the door numbers with the door commands in Msfs I try, it doesn't work. What you can do is you can call up for the stair. Well, hang on, no, you can't call up for the... You call for the caterer, which instead of going from here, comes here, and the caterer will open the door. The stairs will also try to be in the same place as the caterer. It looks really... I don't know if I can fix this, but something maybe for the mod to correct. There is a profile for GSX, but I haven't got GSX activated. Usually during my test flights, I don't use any of the external tools. So, yeah. Anyway, let's go back into the cockpit. Now, one thing you have to say definitely is the modeling, the visual modeling is good. Always has been. Really nice looking cockpit. Nice looking outside. There are quite a few cargo liveries now out there. So from that point of view, the aircraft is okay. The sound is okay. I can't fault it. I mean, it could be better, yes. And there are actually the FLT Sim Plus, or what's it called, the sound kit, which is a sort of a payware because you have to go on Patreon or something like that and pay these guys something to get the full version. I didn't bother with that, not for this aircraft. So, yeah. I think the sound is okay. It's good enough. It may not be realistic, but it's good enough. So, in general, with the mod, together with the mod, without the mod, you can forget this thing completely. Just don't even try, because it will not work, especially not on current sim updates. And the other danger is, next sim update, I don't know, sim update 13 coming up, and you never know, it might not work. And then we don't know if Captain Sim bothers finally updating and repairing this. I have no idea what their plans for this aircraft are, but I have a feeling that because of all the shitstorm that followed when they started bringing out these fake 777s, they might not be too eager to invest a lot of things. Probably. Anyway, let's go, and you can say about half of the buttons, probably half of the buttons are active, the rest is all fake, but they are in positions, normally you wouldn't see it here like this, they are in positions that, yeah, kind of make sense, so don't expect too much. This is still a standard aircraft. Under the hood is a 747, and you will also see some remnants of the 747 even with the mod, because they haven't changed all the synoptics, for example, on the displays. But what the heck, I mean, it works as far. So Adiros are not possible, so you can turn on the battery. You have automatically external power. You can turn it on. And what I usually do is I just turn on these switches here. Yeah, this is all fake. 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 So the whole air conditioning stuff is working without you having to do anything. That's the anti-ice stuff. Obviously, that is not fake. It's a bit strange the way the arrows and so on point, but I mean, you find the click spots and then you're okay. Let's turn on enough lights. Yeah, the lighting is actually quite nice. It's pretty okay, I think. You cannot use all of those, like the master brightness isn't working, storm light isn't working, but dome light is working, so it can dim down the dome light and some of the other stuff. I'm not sure this, I don't seem to get this. So the aircraft is generally a little bit brighter than I would probably have it myself. The hydraulic pumps, you only have the primary pumps on left and right. The whole electrical thingies doesn't exist, doesn't work. You can turn on the seat belts, and no smoking is fake. Yeah, so that's about it. Can't really do much more. Here's the MCP. It actually works, and that reminds me of having to start MobiFlight, which connects my honeycomb. And the good thing is, because it is default, you can do anything you can do on the, yeah, so you can use the mode buttons, vertical speed and things like that. Altitude can be changed. So all the kind of most, the most needed things that you require. Now, because this is actually a salty mod, and here was the surprise, because I thought, heck with this AUI2, the salty mod is out of the window, and actually the salty mod isn't updated anymore. They have stopped working on it, which is a bit of a pity, because the salty mod didn't only fix the FMC stuff, but it also added Simbrief integration and things like that. So I'm hoping that someone sits down and maybe reduces the salty mod to those functionalities that are not provided by the AAUI. For example, Simbrief integration. But because the old API, the old programming interface is still available, the salty mods, or their variants like this here, seem to still work. With the 747 though, this aircraft here is based on the old API, so it's still the old crap, therefore salty mod fixes it. The new 747 and 787, they are completely new, so you can't use the salty mod anymore with the 747. So my hope is someone takes it, removes all the stuff that has to do with the FMC and the displays and all that kind of stuff that has improved, and leaves in the functionality that we also have started to like, such as the Simbrief integration, for example. I don't know if someone with enough knowledge how to do this will sit down. So you can go to the salty, you can go to the payload, by the way, and we have 72 tons of fuel on board. That's far too much, so we're going to reduce this to 25,000 kilograms. The payload is also too much, although actually we have rocket baby here, so better not. The CG, I'm not sure that is whether or not this is calculated, so you can do execute. It's calculated, so you don't have to. Yeah, and then it kind of changes your fuel. and it also changes the payload. We have now 25 tons on board, 12.5, 12.5. It's actually here for the check. And yesterday in the stream, I wasn't able to start the APU. I wonder if that's going to be different. If I'm not able to start the APU, then I show you the obvious trick to get the engine started, because that's mainly what I need it for. But yeah, so here's how you can load your aircraft. You still have also the possibility of setting the IRS, so you can do instant align. Or maybe not. Units, kilograms and stuff. 80 source, by the way, it's VATSIM, so I could use 80s. The meta source is also VATSIM. You can configure this. TAF source is NOAA. There is no VATSIM TAF. The Simbrief ID you can put in here. So it will connect to Simbrief. And what was that again? MISC options, pilots visibility, none. Yeah, I don't want pilots in the cockpit. I'm enough. World map, FP sync, world map, flight plan, pause. Okay. Here you can actually sync a flight plan that you create in the initial world menu. Since I don't do that, I don't really need this. There's also the D-Link option, and you can go. I think you need to provide this here, and now let's see, log on to origin. It's some time ago. No, that doesn't work. Okay, I thought that this is possible. Maybe not. I thought it is possible to actually get ATC meta information. Sending. Yeah. There we go. I knew it would work. So log on status. Anyway, request. Raise request altitude. Nope, that's position report. When can we free text clearance? Log report. Log on status. Emergency. Let's go back to the menu again. ATC index. Print log report request. Is that not here somewhere? Route request, erase request. Yeah, okay. Can't remember where you get your ATC. Anyway, the functionality is still there. I haven't tested it, so I can't say if this works at all or if this is just all fake. Could be. But anyway, let's go here. So we're in a 777-200.4. It's the freighter version, and we are here in Stuttgart as usual. The gate is 105. Now that's doesn't have any impact. Take the current position from here. At least the last time I think you couldn't use these. That's again, most of the stuff that you see is kind of fake, so don't get too hung up on it. It's probably not doing a lot. EDDM, flight number CS777, yeah. Here you can actually request, if you have a Simbrief flight, and I'm not going to press now because I have an active Simbrief flight which is not this here. I'm going to manually set up the flight, but it would actually load stuff from Simbrief if you have an active flight plan with Simbrief. So, no, hang on. Let's go to route. Departure, do the usual thing, very simple setup. I usually press exec. over the months I have made different experiences with not pressing exec. So IL08 left, and here you can see that we are in the mod, because in the old software it would automatically put betos as transition in there and beto 1 alpha, and it's almost impossible to get rid of it. And if you try, then you mess up your whole flight plan. It is a nightmare in the old avionics stuff. So that's the good thing. Salty fixes this. Execute. Let's see, we have an expected discontinuity. Execute. It does not really calculate things here, and it will not, at least not when I did it. Route data is not working. So let's go to performance init. Reserves, we're kind of saying 5 tons. You can do a send request, and what it would do is it would actually pull this from Simbrief. So I reject it now, and put it back, and enter the data myself. Flying flight level 140. Cost index 35. Let's go to the thrust limit. Now Stuttgart, with a bit of weight, the aircraft is very reluctant to take off. So, yeah. So 90, 80. Yeah, 90 is not enough. But let's then maybe use a temperature. Oops. Should that not be less? Oh yeah, I see. Let's leave it at this. Yeah, I had some difficulties. The runway was almost too short on my first flight. So I keep a high takeoff thrust at the moment until I figure out how this thing ticks when it comes to taking off. So we're going to use, was it flaps 10? No, it was flaps 15. Oops. Flaps 15. CG, it will not calculate stuff. The trim doesn't really make sense. The CG was 23, I thought. Oh god, it's getting worse. Because 8.71 is way outside the green area for takeoff. Alright, so what I do is I just keep it on what it shows here, 7.5, because that stuff doesn't yet, at least I have the feeling that it doesn't really work. And the V-speeds, I don't know. I guess they may be okay, maybe they're not. I can't tell you. Let's put in 146 as V2. Do the whole setup here as well. We are, bank angle works, okay. The heading 072 or 071 differs sometimes from add-on to add-on. Then the altitude, we're going to immediately go to flight level 140. 140. Okay. We're going to turn the flight directors on. They both turn on automatically. And yeah, what I learned is LNAV and VNAV. We'll see what happens this time. So I'm not going to turn it on. I'm only turning it on actively when we are on the runway and more or less ready to move, because this aircraft just continued straight on, and it didn't bother about my flight plan. Only after I turned it off and on again during flight did the LNAV kick in eventually. So this time I'm trying it differently. I'm not activating it, I'm only activating it on the runway, because I have a feeling if I do it too early, could be that that's the reason why it behaves like this. Is this correct? Probably not, but I'm just telling you how it happens. We'll see. Now the other thing is the APU. So let's start the APU now. I stay on the switch for some seconds because it might help or might not help. Then I go down here and nothing, nada. But sometimes, so I'm not sure what the rule is, eventually the APU gen might show on. It didn't yesterday in my stream. So it goes on off, which means it has actually electricity, because I haven't clicked on the button yet, it's on. That it didn't show yesterday, so it took me quite long, and I in the end started the engines with Control E, but at the moment it looks like we do have, so let's see if that's true, because if I take away the ground power, then yeah, yesterday. So we have the APU is on, so theoretically we now have pressured air for engine start. We shall see. So let's oh no, we didn't have a ground menu here. No, okay. So let's have a quick look around at the outside of the aircraft. So all the stairs, all of that, you can hear the APU, that's good. All the doors are closed, so we are practically ready for pushback. I'm using, actually, this is Flow Pro, by the way. I recently bought it, and I have to say, it's still a bit messy. I have to probably organize my menus a bit better. That's the problem with so many features. You end up with a mess of stuff. But somewhere I do have, here is my, it has a built-in pushback functionality, which uses the standard pushback stuff. So if I don't want to use Pushback Express or GSX, unfortunately what was it called, the pushback tool that gave us a freeware tool that gave us the possibility to actually select the position where to push. That one hasn't been updated. It's quite, yeah, it's about a year old. It simply doesn't work anymore correctly. And yeah, well, I can't blame the developer. If you don't have time, you don't have time. I know how this stuff is. I had times where I couldn't really do anything. But it would be nice if a work that has been put in and that's really good gets updated from time to time so that it stays active and current, because it was one of the best freeware pushback tools. But as it doesn't work anymore reliably, I don't use it. Right, now let's release the parking brake, and in the meantime, what we do is, let's put that away. Yeah, we just put it on start. And actually I should have put the engine page on. And then just turn this on. So we can hear the engine spooling up. Yeah, and by the way, this is a 747 remnant, okay? So this is not the way it looks in the 777. There you see still the genes of the underlying aircraft. Yeah, I should have probably started later or turn slower. What the heck? As long as the direction is okay. Okay, parking brake on. You can remove. It's actually quite nice. It's a quick and easy way. The rest I will do when the engines are running. So we have now. Well, we haven't got the starter cutout yet, so let's wait. Bitte warten. Please hold the line. Ah, well. Let's start number one. You have to be pragmatic in this aircraft. And don't expect things to work in a real. Yeah, it simply doesn't. And as you can see, we still have no displays here, but just wait, it will come as soon as we have. Something is fishy. Something is fishy. Yep. No, this does not work. Control E. Oh, I forgot to turn on the pumps. Ah. Yeah, fishy is Costa. Shit. Yeah, that's the video making. So we don't need these two. I thought that was a little bit low, everything. Yeah, and now you can see as soon as the generators are producing something. Yeah, but that was my own fault now. And I have seen the engine start normally, so. Okay, let's see. Start a cutout. Yep. Now let's quickly go through. Auto. Yeah. On. So they need to be on. They are all on. This is all on. Now the beacon we should have turned on. I do have a 777 checklist somewhere, which I will dig out when I fly seriously. All of that is fake. Yeah, that's on. Fake. Okay. Let's go down here. Flaps 15. Now obviously all three displays are 1. So flaps set. Speed brake is up. Yeah, they're down, better to say. Okay, flaps are set, so all this here is set. And yeah, for some reason my reverse functionality doesn't work, so I use the F2, okay? And you can see how it kind of switches. That's probably the way that Captain Sim has done this. It works with the F2 key and the F1 key. So you keep pressing the F2 key until you get full reverse, and then you press the F1 key, which is in Microsoft and simulators. F1 was cut thrust, and F2 is reduced thrust. And if you keep pressing it, it will go into the reverse. yeah, it works. It's not great, but it does the job. Also, something that I haven't yet been able to program, because for some reason it doesn't seem to work, is this button, which is the toga button here. So I will need to press this manually until I found out what I have to program in order to make this work. I just unpacked this aircraft and installed it, so I haven't really spent a lot of time in order to get this fixed. Right, then taxi lights on, and I think up here we are okay. We don't need anti-ice today. Parking brake is off. Just give it a nudge with the engines and then it will start rolling. And you can see it actually accelerates slowly, even with idle thrust. I think the heavier you are, the less acceleration will happen. But as these are large and heavy aircraft, you don't really want to do Le Mans here with these birds anyway. You can steer with the rudders or you can steer with the steering axis. It doesn't really work to have them both, so better decide what you need. Now there is also an issue with the ILS. I will show you later on in the flight. The auto ILS doesn't seem to work, so I have to manually give it a nudge by providing the frequency. We will do this when we are closer to Munich. So interesting view, because it doesn't limit like some models have limits, so you can't get out of the cockpit with your cockpit views, but this one doesn't. You could say, yeah, well, good example for how cheap this is done. Actually, I quite like that because it allows me to do more flexible views and actually program them. So I don't really mind this. Maybe we shouldn't have traveled along. This is a large aircraft, right? But anyway, find that interesting. I like this option. Okay, let's stop here for the moment, and then just a quick check. Flaps 15, auto brake RTO, and strobes on. I'm probably going to forget half of the things I should do. The APU is still on, so we're going to turn it off now. And that means we should be basically ready. Let's also, yeah, it's actually not the last, it's the one before the last setting. You can set your transponder code. It works with vPilot and Swift. At least when I quickly gave it a try, it was working, so you're fine. Again, slight nudge with the engines and then bringing them to idle again. One of the things that the mod does is replace the really slightly odd-looking 747 PFD with a more realistic-looking PFD that also matches. And they do all this here, yeah, to be more realistic with the round instruments instead of the half-cut kind of. We have 4 engines, but we hide 2 of them things. Okay, now I really wonder if it works this time. So I'm going to activate LNAV and VNAV now in the hope that that works better this time. I stay on the brake, and then I try and find that button here, press it. I still stay on the brake until the we're still so you see it takes quite some time for N1 to reach the value, and I wonder if we actually will, because we're still at 85. That's not good.
V1.
But we have reached V1, rotate. So again, and be very gentle with the elevator, because you will hear the stall sound very quickly. Yeah, and then you just follow be very gentle. It's quite, the flight director is quite nervous, and the elevator, I only move it kind of millimeters here. Yeah, I probably need a separate setup. Flaps 5. So I'm trimming now for the elevator. And now I'm activating the autopilot and let it take over. And don't be surprised when you see a dip. Flaps 1.
2500.
Because that's unfortunately what it will do. That's why you shouldn't go to the autopilot too early. Fly it on the flight director for some time before. So we have the settings says thrust reference, LNAV, VNAV speed, and here comes rocket mode now. The auto brake has turned itself off, which is good. The flaps are in. Transition altitude, standard. And thanks to Salty-Mod and so on, we also have top of descent. Now, if that feels too much, you could always click on vertical speed and just do it yourself. Just put in 1800 or something. I just let it go now because I want to test how it's doing. It is relatively light. I would imagine that if we have really full tank and full cargo, we would probably not climb like a rocket as it does now. So we're still below 10,000. That's why it keeps 250. I haven't modified the speed. It is possible to modify the climb and cruise speed in a kind it sort of works, but you cannot leave this aircraft out of sight. You need to watch it. So don't be expecting that you can go for half an hour on a transatlantic flight, cook something and then come back. It could be that it could be that your aircraft is flying somewhere totally unexpected. So just be aware of that. For VATSIM flying, to be honest, I'm not going to use it for that. I have some other things I can use it for, also for videos, but for serious flying on VATSIM, no way, Jose. So far so good. The first test will come now on ABTAL. We shall see if on ABTAL it switches. Well, it does switch the waypoint, yeah. So MAGAT probably gets magenta, but as I say the last time, it just continued. It just continued straight because under the hood it's still on LNAV. And now seeing that, let me do this. So I just you see, you can't even turn off LNAV at the moment. Let's see. So we reach our altitude. Okay. Let's see what happens next. Also interesting, it says the N1 value it kind of aims at is 89 for the cruise, but that could be because we are too low. For a normal cruise we are too low. 14,000 or flight level 140 is not normal cruise, yeah. So we're actually quite low because obviously it will set the engines to what the speed is, and we wouldn't be flying with 321 or Mach 0.6 on 14,000 feet. Normally it would be much higher up, but that's part of the test of this scenario that I always do with every aircraft, with every jet. So 5 miles to ABTAL. Three miles. So MAGAT switched and haha. Okay, so we learned from that. Don't turn it on too early. Don't turn it on already at the gate. Turn LNAV and VNAV on when you're more or less ready for takeoff. And it doesn't harm if you click on it in between. It seems to have brought it into the right mode. So another of the glitches that I had yesterday worked around. I mean, let's face it, it's workarounds, yeah. It's not what this the real aircraft would do anyway. And in the real aircraft you wouldn't have to bother. But this is about being pragmatic and trying to make it work and see if it works reliably enough. So I'm now going to try a speed intervention. So I click here and I'll bring the speed down to 250. Which should probably also change the calculation of the top of descent, I would think. Possibly. Let's see. Yeah, well, I don't know, I should have checked before I done this. Anyway. So if we go to VNAV, we're now in cruise mode, selected speed 280. Let's see if we can actually, no, we can't. All right. So it has reduced Yeah, it's a bit dark, the cockpit. Let's bring up the display brightness. None of that. Okay, let's put, oops. Well, I had a feeling that auto brake wasn't either not very effective or didn't work, so I'm going to put it now this time on 2 and see if I can actually feel more of it. Yeah, and there's a bit of fluctuation here on the speed. You can hear the engine going. But that's okay. That's... Yeah, is that 5 degrees? Going to bring out that window for the landing. We have almost 5 degrees nose up attitude. Yeah, maybe could be because of the settings I have now, the speed and all. I don't know. It's a bit strange. But I'm not a 777 pilot. Could be that it's okay. Now, this scenario has a neuralgic point at MAGAT. You have to be more or less, even shortly before MAGAT, you should be on 5,000 feet. And you need that so that you're not above the glide slope. Because a lot of the add-ons, especially the payware add-ons, if they are doing things correctly, will not capture the glide slope if you're above it. That's for safety reasons, obviously. Because it's quite hard to catch it if you're too high. This aircraft, I'm not actually sure what it's doing. I was slightly above it, but the glide slope was already more or less here in the middle, and probably that was still in the limits of when the glide slope can be captured, because it is possible to correct. But if you're too high, then you're going to get a problem. So let's bring this to 5,000. And then check what VNAV is doing. So we should be seeing the descent path showing up here. There we go. And because I'm still on speed intervention, it will compensate. So we're descending with about 1,500, 1,600 or so. From that position, it theoretically should bring us to MAGAT beforehand. Now it depends a lot on how the speed Now the speed, it's hard to actually slow this aircraft down. And the more you kind of interact with the autopilot by changing certain things, the more likely it gets that we're not at 5,000 feet at MAGAT. So, yeah, this is my third flight now with it, and I'm trying to not touch anything, not even the speed brake. I'll just see what happens. Yeah. I'll turn on the lights because I'm pretty sure I will forget. And now that part of the nav radio. Now, as I say, I have done it now several times, and I can tell you at MAGAT, if you find out at MAGAT shortly before your ILS approach that the frequency isn't tuned, your approach will fail because it needs to be there before. So I'm not relying on it eventually maybe putting the frequency in. In my experience, it doesn't. So I'll just add the frequency, which means that very shortly we should see the ILS ID, and here we go. See? DME 25. This will not happen. So if you don't do what I just did, you will end up with no ILS tuned, and yeah, my first approach was more or less manual because I realized, oopsala, it doesn't follow the glide slope. Why doesn't it follow the glide slope? Oh, where is the, why hasn't it? Yeah, you don't want to have that at the initial approach fix. Now you can already see that you know, it fluctuates a little bit. We're still fine with 5,000 feet. But my experience was when I try and now correct this with the speed brake, for example, or so, yeah, it kind of messes up things. So at the moment, I'll just let it go. We are, yeah, we are still above the glide slope, but my hope is that we will not be in a moment. By the way, another thing it doesn't do is adjust the speed depending on the flaps and so on. So you will have to, it will bring you to up speed. And we are actually quite fast, so yeah, I'm trying different variants with every flight. I'm not sure when I should. We are still above the glide slope, so I will not intervene. But we're also very fast. 260 is too fast, so let's bring this to the up speed, and I use the speed brake to keep our because it will take the nose up, and I don't want that now. So I use the speed brake. And now see, I arm the approach, localizer, wide, glide slope wide. Now, one problem it has is if you're too late with retracting the speed brake, it will go up and down like a yo-yo for some time. And that could also mess up your descent. So I think I think we are fine. See, we are bang on here. Glide slope captured, localizer captured. That's what you want to see. I'm going to reduce now to... I'm going to try and reduce the speed to flaps 1 speed and then bring out flaps 1. Oh yeah, and if you expect this thing to fly on Autoland, think again. No. Yeah, as you can see, it's very difficult to slow it down. I don't want to use the speed brake because the speed brake messes things up quite easily. So I'm bringing out the gears. Flaps 5. And you will probably be quite hectic with the flaps schedule here on this one. Flaps 15. I actually forgot to set the approach speed 30, flaps 30. So we can now bring the speed to VREF. Yeah, you can see we are getting close, yeah. So VREF. Flaps 20. I'm already setting myself up for the approach. Auto brake 2, flaps 25. And flaps 30. Yeah, and things are starting to get a little bit unstable at this point. And now again, be very gentle with the especially the elevator. And leave the engines running until you're more or less shortly before. Go. Oops, yeah, and $60 knots. Yeah, I think auto brake 2 is the better setting. So let's see, I'm disconnecting the auto brake. Yeah, manual braking. Okay, so auto brake 1 was not sufficient. It didn't really help me with reducing the speed. So let's take this high speed. By the way, another Flow Pro feature, the landing rate, which was actually quite okay this time. Yeah, and I need to get myself a button somehow programmed so that I can turn off the auto throttle. I also don't have that. And we stop here. Yo! speed brake in, and yeah, theoretically I would now turn on the APU. Prepare, we're not going to taxi to the gate. Let's put in the park brake. Alright, so once you start knowing this aircraft a little bit better, you can do flights with it. But you must have the latest version, the corrected version of the mod. That's definitely, without it, you can forget this aircraft completely. And you need to be very pragmatic, and yeah, I wouldn't use it for Watson flying, to be honest. Well, you can, but the danger is that it throws some tantrums at times when you don't really need them. So there's absolutely no guarantee that it will behave. There are some things that I've shown you now. If you know them by having flown with the aircraft a couple of times and knowing the tantrums that it has thrown at me so far, you can actually get it pretty stable from A to B. Yeah. But yeah, I had surprises with every flight. Today we had little surprises because most of it I anticipated, but this is this same route I flew all the time. The next one, it might not work for some other reasons, or it might have some issues also with weather. We don't really have weather here, okay? So I can't really promise you that this aircraft will behave under all circumstances. It's not a reliable PMDG kind of style aircraft. But it's a 777, it looks good. It's a cargo aircraft. For me, personally, I prefer cargo flying. Is good, and it's a standard aircraft, pretty much, with the Salty mod bringing it to a slightly higher level, and also fixing a lot of the issues that it has. And I think that's fine. So up to you if you want to risk it. Again, personally, I wouldn't buy it now. I would wait for the PMDG. But PMDG 2 years ago when I bought this, or 1.5 years, I don't know when it came out. I think it was in 21. PMDG wasn't even close to having started with the 777. In the meantime, I think they have gone further, although it's always a bit difficult to understand their plans when it comes to releasing aircraft. They do also change from time to time, but I would say if you get it for $10 like I did, I don't know if Captain Sim will do a sale like this, and the mod is still working, yeah, maybe you can risk it. But I have to tell you, next Sim update, maybe another avionics update, who knows what Asobu is coming up with in the next couple of months and years, this aircraft might not work in 6 months from now. It's possible. It's possible that they change something that is so fundamental that the mod won't work. Maybe we don't find a developer who can fix this, and then most likely this aircraft is grounded. So just be aware of that. If you are now investing money, you have been warned. Okay? Right, that's it. Thanks very much for watching. I hope that was interesting. I'm somewhat glad that I don't have to throw it in the bin. But yeah, it's not going to be my favorite aircraft in a lot of flights. Until next time.